It is 2:17 a.m. in the morning. You are staring at a brokerage account you opened 4 months ago. The number on the screen is not the number you put in. It is smaller, noticeably smaller. And you are doing the math again, not because the math will change, but because you keep hoping it will. You have watched the videos, you have read the threads, you have listened to the podcasts during your commute, nodding along like it all made sense. And yet here you are, down 14%, holding a position you do not fully understand, in a market that does not care about you at all. This is not a story about losing money. This is a story about where you are right now, which stage of this thing you are actually in, and what it costs to stay there longer than you have to. There are 5 stages to becoming someone who truly understands money. Most people never make it past the 3rd one. This is what all 5 of them look like from the inside. Nobody tells you that financial literacy is not a destination. It is a sequence. You do not wake up one day and simply understand money. You move through levels of understanding, each one revealing that the last one was incomplete, each one showing you a new layer of complexity you could not see before. The problem is not intelligence. The smartest people in any room are often stuck in the same place as everyone else. The problem is awareness, knowing which stage you are in, and more importantly, knowing what is keeping you there. Some people move through all 5 stages in a decade. Others spend their entire lives circling stage 3 without ever knowing there is a stage 4. This video is for the ones who want to know. Phase 1, the beginner. You are 22, maybe 23. You just got your first real paycheck. The number looked bigger before taxes. You're standing in a grocery store, doing mental math, deciding between 2 nearly identical items because one is 60 cents cheaper, and you feel vaguely proud of that. Then something happens. A podcast. A video. A conversation with someone who mentions the word portfolio, and it lands differently than it did before. You look it up, then you look up the next thing, then the next. And for the first time, money feels like something you could actually understand. The beginner is not naive. They are curious. They are absorbing everything. Compound interest, index funds, the difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA, what a brokerage account actually is, and how to open one. They are watching their net worth tracker update every Monday morning, like it is a scoreboard. They have a savings rate goal. They have automated their contributions. They are doing the things. And here is the truth about this stage. It is the most genuinely optimistic you will ever feel about money. Everything is new. Every concept is a revelation. The math of compounding feels like discovering a secret the rest of the world somehow missed. You tell people about it. You bring it up at dinner. You genuinely cannot understand why everyone is not doing this. The hidden flaw of the beginner is not ignorance. And it is the assumption that understanding the concept is the same as understanding the reality. You have read about market corrections. You know they happen. You know the data says to stay the course. You have told yourself, calmly and confidently, that you would not panic sell. You have never actually sat through one. That distinction matters more than any of the reading. The beginner is building a foundation, and that is real, and it matters. But they are building it in theory. The structure has not been tested by weather yet. Eventually, the weather comes. Phase 2. The overconfident. 12 months in. Maybe 18. The market has been good to you. Not because you are particularly skilled, though you do not know that yet, but because you started during a stretch where almost everything was going up. Your account is green. Your confidence has compounded faster than your returns. You have graduated from index funds to individual stocks. You have an opinion on sectors now. You talk about valuations. You use words like oversold and resistance levels in conversations with people who have no idea what you are talking about. And that feels good in a way you do not examine too closely. The overconfident is not foolish. They are pattern matched to a specific set of conditions that will not hold forever. They have seen enough to feel like they understand the game. Not enough to know that the game changes. There is a particular kind of intellectual trap that lives in this stage. You start to confuse information with insight. You have consumed enormous amounts of financial content, charts, analysis, earnings reports, and macro commentary. And it all feels like it is building toward a complete picture. But information without experience is a model of reality, not reality itself. The overconfident takes larger positions than they should, not because they are reckless. They would tell you they have a thesis, a reason, a plan. But the position sizing reflects a confidence in their own judgment that has not yet been tested under pressure. They have also started to develop opinions about other people's financial decisions. The friend who keeps everything in a savings account is being irrational. The family member who does not invest is leaving money on the table. The colleague who puts everything in index funds is being intellectually lazy. The overconfident has enough knowledge to feel superior, not enough to understand what they are missing. And then something shifts in the market. Not a crash. Not necessarily. Just a correction. A sector they were heavy in starts moving the wrong direction. A company they believed in misses earnings. A macro event nobody predicted changes the environment, and suddenly the thesis feels less solid than it did when you wrote it. This is the door to stage 3. Most people walk right through it. Phase 3, the stuck. This is where most people live. Not permanently, but long enough that it starts to feel permanent. You are back to that laptop, that number that is smaller than it was. And you are in the particular kind of frustration that only comes when you feel like you did everything right and it still went wrong. The stuck is not a beginner anymore. They know too much to be a beginner. They have seen enough to have opinions. Less than enough of those opinions have been wrong that confidence is now a complicated thing. They do not know what to trust. The analysis they did, the framework they built, or their own judgment. And that uncertainty is expensive. Not just financially. Because when you are in stage 3, you do not just lose money. You lose clarity. You start making decisions from a place of recovery, trying to get back to even. And those decisions are almost always worse than the ones that got you here. There is a specific psychological trap that holds people in stage 3, and almost nobody talks about it directly. It is called loss aversion, and it is not a weakness. It is how human brains are wired. Losses feel approximately twice as painful as equivalent gains feel good, which means a 10% drop hits you harder psychologically than a 10% gain lifted you. So you hold positions you should close, because closing them makes the loss real. On paper, there is still a chance it comes back. Closing it means accepting that it will not. You start researching more aggressively. Not to learn, to find something that confirms you were right. Confirmation bias dressed up as due diligence. You join forums where everyone is holding the same losing position and calling each other diamond hands. And for a few hours, that community feels like evidence that you are not wrong. You are just early. You add to the position. Because if it was worth buying at $20, it must be worth buying at 14. Dollar cost averaging. You tell yourself, but there is a difference between systematically adding to a solid position and averaging down into something broken out of stubbornness. The stuck is not incompetent. They are trapped by the psychological cost of being wrong. And here is what makes stage 3 particularly dangerous. The exit is not obvious. It does not feel like moving forward. It feels like giving up, accepting a loss, rebuilding a framework, acknowledging that the system you built was incomplete. Those feel like failure. They are actually the entrance to stage 4. But most people do not frame them that way. Most people double down, or they quit entirely, pull everything out, put it in a savings account, and decide the whole thing was a scam. And 10 years later, they are telling someone else not to invest because they tried it and it did not work. Yeah, and what they mean is they got stuck in stage 3 and they never found the door. This is the stage that ends financial journeys. It does not have to end yours. Phase 4. The aware. Stage 4 does not arrive with a dramatic moment. It arrives quietly, usually after a loss. Sometimes after a long plateau, where nothing seems to be working. And it starts with a question that the earlier stages never seriously asked. What is actually driving my decisions? The aware is the stage where money stops being a subject and becomes a mirror. You start noticing things. The way you feel when the market opens. The specific anxiety that arrives when a position moves against you. The way your decision-making shifts when you are tired or stressed or coming off a loss. The difference between what you tell yourself you're doing and what you are actually doing. You start to see that the financial decisions you make are inseparable from the person making them. The frameworks you trust are the ones that feel consistent with how you already see the world. The risks you take are shaped by fears you have never examined. The goals you are working toward are not always the goals you actually want. Sometimes they are goals you adopted from someone else, someone you admired, someone you were trying to impress. The aware does not have better information than the overconfident. They have better questions. They read differently now, not to confirm, to challenge. They deliberately seek out perspectives that conflict with their own, not to be contrarian, but because they have learned that the thing that makes you most confident is usually the thing most worth examining. They have also changed their relationship with time. The beginner and the overconfident both understood intellectually that investing is a long-term game. The aware has felt that in a way that changes behavior. They no longer check their portfolio every day. Not because they are disciplined, because they genuinely understand that daily checking does not produce information. It produces noise, and noise produces bad decisions. There is a specific thing that happens at this stage that almost nobody anticipates. The work becomes less interesting, not more. The beginner found every new concept thrilling. The overconfident found the complexity exciting. But the aware finds that the most rational financial path is usually the most boring one. Low-cost index funds, automated contributions, consistent allocation, long-time horizon, minimal intervention. And that simplicity is genuinely difficult to sit with. Because your brain, which spent the earlier stages consuming analysis and building frameworks and making moves, now has to be quiet, has to resist, has to do less. Doing less with intention is harder than doing more out of anxiety. The aware has not mastered this yet, but they can see it. They are learning the difference between activity and progress. That distinction is the foundation of stage 5. Phase 5, the builder. The builder does not look like what you imagined when you started this. They do not talk about money at dinner. They do not have strong opinions about which stocks are undervalued right now. They are not watching the market at 2 a.m. in the morning. They are asleep at 2 in the morning because they made their decisions weeks ago. And those decisions do not need to be revisited tonight. The builder has internalized something that took years to absorb. Wealth is not built in moments of insight. It is built in years of unremarkable consistency. Their portfolio looks, on the surface, almost identical to what a beginner might build. Diversified, low cost, automated, long horizon. The difference is not the structure. It is the relationship to the structure. The beginner built that portfolio because they read it was the right thing to do. The builder maintains it because they have lived through enough market cycles to feel, not just know, that it is right. The market dropped 30% in 2020 in the span of a few weeks. The builder did not sell, not because they were brave, because they had processed the fear ahead of time. They had already decided, before the drop, what they would do when it happened. And when it happened, there was no decision to make. There was only the plan. Discipline is not something you find in the moment. It is something you build before the moment arrives. The builder has also expanded their definition of what they are building. It stopped being purely about the portfolio a long time ago. They invest in their earning power the same way they invest in the market, a skill that makes them 10% more valuable costs less than a year of returns on a small account, and it compounds in ways the market cannot replicate. Either your reputation, your network, your ability to think clearly under pressure. These are assets. They do not show up in a brokerage account. They show up in the options available to you a decade from now. The builder thinks in decades, not in quarters, not in years, in decades. That time horizon does something to the urgency you feel. It does not remove ambition. It changes the shape of it. You stop trying to optimize every single decision and start trying to build systems that make good decisions automatically without requiring willpower each time. Automated savings, consistent allocation, pre-decided responses to market events, spending boundaries that are not punishing but are real. The builder is not the most interesting person in the room when the conversation turns to finance. They are rarely the person who made the biggest return last year. They are almost never the person telling a story about the stock that doubled. They are the person who will still be building 20 years from now when most of the interesting stories have ended. Here is the part that most finance content will not say directly. Stage 3 is not a phase you pass through once. It is a place you can return to. The aware can slip back. The builder, under enough pressure, can find themselves making stage 3 decisions again. Chasing, holding too long, letting emotion override the system. It does not mean they have lost everything they learned, but the conditions that created stage 3, loss, fear, the psychological cost of being wrong, those conditions do not disappear. They follow you through every stage. What changes is how long you stay there. The beginner might live in stage 3 for years without knowing it has a name. The aware recognizes it within weeks and has a framework for moving through it. The builder feels the pull of it and has already pre-decided how to respond. The stages are not a ladder you climb once and never descend. They are a map. And the value of the map is that it tells you where you are. When you can name the stage you are in, you can start to see the exit. When you cannot name it, you cannot see the door. That is the entire difference. Money, at its core, is not a math problem. The math of personal finance is genuinely simple. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference. Do it consistently. Wait. Everyone who has spent any time in this space knows that. The information is everywhere, and it is free. It has been free for decades. And yet most people never build wealth. Not because they lack information, because the execution of a simple strategy against a complicated psychology is not simple at all. Your relationship with money was shaped before you were old enough to examine it, by what you watched your parents do with a paycheck, by the first time you felt poor or rich or embarrassed about money in a social situation, by the narratives you absorbed about what money means, what it says about you, whether people like you are supposed to have it. Those invisible frameworks are running in the background of every financial decision you make, and they will keep running until you make them visible. That is what moving through the stages actually is. Not learning more, not building a better spreadsheet, not finding the right stock or the perfect allocation. It is learning to see yourself clearly enough to get out of your own way. The people who build real wealth are not the ones who found a secret. They are the ones who stayed long enough, made enough mistakes, and had enough honest conversations with themselves to understand that the obstacle was never the market. It was always something else. Somewhere right now, someone is sitting at a laptop at 2 a.m. in the morning. Maybe they just saw a video about index funds and something clicked. Maybe they are opening their first investment account, hovering over the confirm button, feeling the particular electricity of beginning something. They do not know about stage 3 yet. They do not know about the position they will hold too long. Yes, the thesis that will look airtight until it does not. The 2 a.m. in their future, when the number on the screen will be smaller than the number they put in. They will learn. Not from a video, not from a book, from the experience of moving through the stages themselves, carrying the confusion of stage 3 long enough to find the clarity of stage 4. Every builder was once the stuck. Every aware person was once the overconfident. Every stage is the necessary foundation for the next one. The question is never whether you will go through it. The question is whether you will recognize where you are when you are inside it. Because that recognition, that small, quiet shift of perspective, is the only thing that actually moves you forward. Not more information, not a better strategy, just the ability to see clearly. And the screen glows, the numbers change, the cycle continues. The only question is, which stage are you in right now? If this hit differently than most finance content you have watched, that is intentional. On The Wealth Shift, we do not do hype. We do not do shortcuts. We talk about money the way it actually works, through psychology, behavior, and the long, unglamorous work of building something real. If that is the kind of content you want more of, subscribe and turn on notifications. The next video will be waiting. See you there.